Hey everyone, it's Andrew Brown, and welcome to the free GenAI Bootcamp as we're entering into week 1 or week 2, depending if you like to count from 0. But I know since we're all developers, we all start at 0. But just before I introduce my guest instructor here, Ryan, I just want to point out one slide in particular for those that are trying to listen to us here. And I'm just going to switch over. Whoops, that's too big. That's too big. There we go. So if you are deaf or hearing impaired, the best way to watch this live stream is on LinkedIn. And if you're on YouTube, we'll drop the LinkedIn link in the comments. It's actually in the description. So I'm going to just go ahead and update this in the description. I'm telling you, this is all live. And it's Saturday.
Doing it live.
Saturday, it's your earlier SNL, but S noon. I don't know.
Noon?
Nanel. So we'll do our best to follow up videos with providing captioning, but if you're looking for it, look for it in, I'll get my nice pen tool out here, in the description, okay? But now that I have that one slide out of the way, I'm going to get back over to here, and I'd like to introduce you to this week's guest instructor, Ryan. If you don't know Ryan is famous for me because I know Ryan from the very famous Carsonified blog and the tech education service called Treehouse. But I'll let Ryan do his introduction here, and then we'll jump right into our bootcamp.
Thanks, Andrew. Hey, good to see everybody. Already see some people in the crowd talking about the Super Bowl. So let's stay focused. Okay, Super Bowl's tomorrow. Good to see everybody. My name is Ryan Carson, as Andrew said. Really excited to be here. I started off coding when my dad brought home an Apple IIe computer in like 1987. I was like, what is that? And I was lucky enough to study computer science. And honestly, I was kind of a mid computer science student. So the first thing I think Andrew and I want you to remember is you do not have to be some computer science whiz here. Those days are long gone. Actually, they were never real anyway. Anybody can learn how to do this stuff, especially with AI. So I was kind of a mid CS student. I managed to graduate and then really found my love helping people learn how to code. So built several businesses to try to help people learn how to code. And the last business was acquired, took a couple of years off, and then ChatGPT happened. And then I was like, wow, okay, neural networks are a little different than they were in 97, and fell back in love and joined Intel because I thought, compute matters. So let's join a company that is all about silicon. And I'm excited to be here today with you all. And we're going to learn together. There are no dumb questions. There are no bad ideas. We're going to have a lot of fun. So back to you, Andrew. Oh, I think you are muted, Andrew.
I probably should unmute myself so people can hear me, but yeah, we're just going to proceed here through some slides, answer some FAQs. But before we do, I'd love to thank our sponsors, starting with Intel. If you don't know Intel, I hear they're a teeny tiny company. That's a joke because they're very well known, but Intel is one of our primary sponsors, and if you have an opportunity, check out their virtual booth. We are covering technology of Intel in this course, but this is my personal pick of selections, such as OPA, AI PCs, and OpenVINO. In fact, this week we will be working with OPA. It's actually pronounced OPA. But anyway, the point is that we're going to start ramping up with that, but we'll talk a little bit more about it there. And I also threw in the Apple IIe there to see if it brings it back. Any nostalgia there for Ryan? My first computer. Oh, sorry, yes.
I missed that thing. Oh, it was beautiful.
My one of the earliest computers I used to go to piano lessons, but the thing that I really wanted to do was to go on the Apple IIe that they had there. So I wasn't interested in piano. I was interested in playing on that machine, but unfortunately, I have too much piano skills now. But I'd like to thank our other sponsors, Torque. So for those who don't know Torque, they are basically a developer profile. And the reason I'm really excited about Torque is that this could be an opportunity for us to connect boot campers with jobs and roles. I've been specifically trying to bring in recruitment companies to try help and align our badges so that they're recognized by companies. And we're going to have Ken Collins possibly this week talking about this stuff, but I'm going to be encouraging you folks to make your developer profile, bringing you some career advice specifically for AI engineer roles. But this will be good for any kind of stuff there. So watch out for that later this week. I have some FAQs. I want to try to answer some of the most commonly answered questions that I've been seeing this week. A lot of it's been around homework and specifically when to submit your homework. And so I just want to make it crystal clear for folks so that, they have a relaxing, easy time and they're not overloading themselves with too much work. So how late can I submit my work? Well, just do your best to be on time by the start of next class. And when I say that, this isn't like if you submit 1-2 minutes late, you get docked lots of points. What we're looking for is that if you just generally submit around that time, could be the day before, the day after, on the day of, then you're going to be okay. If you are submitting weeks late, and that's a consistent thing, then we're going to factor that in. I know some folks like to min-max their approach by saying, well, what if I submit a week late, but I put a lot of extra work into that, or I want to go back and submit. I'm telling you, you've got so much in front of you. Just do what you can and ship it, and you'll be surprised how well you do. I can't keep up with every instruction. Should I drop out? In the last boot camp, the people that earned the best badges weren't the people that did every little thing. It was the ones that were consistent, shipped what they could, and they were so surprised that they made it to the end and they got their badges. The people that did make it to the end tried to do everything, and in this course, or sorry, this boot camp, you have to practice time management. You have to reduce your scope and just accept what it is that you can do and do your best. And we will recognize that. And again, I think you'll surprise yourself if you just do the best that you can. I can't do X because I don't have Y. So we all have different hardwares, different technical backgrounds, different access to services based on geographical locations or just cost. If there's something you cannot do, there's always opportunities to go work on something else, like a previous assignment or things like that. And just be clear in your submissions that, hey, I wasn't able to do X because, let's say Meta AI is not available in my country, or, all I have is my 2019 computer and it doesn't have any GPUs. Just do your best and try to find workarounds and document them and try to exemplify the stuff that you're good at. If you want to make it to Red Squad is our highest grading tier. What I care about is you showing creativity and exceeding expectations. And in this bootcamp, we are building a series of learning applications that go into Lang Portal. Just consider if you can think out of the box and build something that's in business scope, but a really interesting project. Think of it like a hackathon. That will have so much more weight than all the other work possible. So just consider that. There are very specific things that I will give you bonuses on. I want people to develop their DevOps skills. So I'm going to press people to do as much as they can with OPA or other kind of LLM ops, because I think that is a very necessary skill. But, just look out for that stuff. I'm not sure if I have one more slide. Yes, I do. And I just want to talk about the purpose of this week. This week is GenAI Dev and Dev Tools. As Ryan said earlier, you don't need to be an expert developer, but you're going to have to just work your way through it the best you can. But, the focus here will be writing front-end code with GenAI, writing back-end code with GenAI, which is what we're doing in this live stream today, analyzing, exploring code where there's a lack of documentation, which we're going to kind of do that here as well today, generating test code to gain test coverage, which we'll do in a separate video, rapidly prototyping apps using GenAI, and learning some DevOps LLM skills or GenAI ops or whatever ops you want to call it, ML ops, to show you how to get these things into production so that you have the most technical flexibility when choosing what kind of GenAI solution you want to use. Before we jump into some code, I want to just see how everybody is doing. Can I get a score between 0 and 10? How are you feeling? Do you feel that you are on track, or do you feel that you are behind and scrambling to keep pace? Love to see the numbers here in the comments. And I'm watching here. We got 9, 6, 7, 10, 6, 0. Uh-oh, somebody's just showed up this week. 10, 1, etc. So yeah, we have a good mix of everything, but the numbers are good and high. So, I'm hoping that at 11, wow. So I'm thinking that people are in good shape here today. But yeah, hopefully that really clears up the homework there. But let's go jump into it. So I'm going to take down the slides and let's talk about what we are working on today. So apparently I don't have the article pulled up, but that's okay. I'm going to go to the GenAI website. And by the way, if you're ever looking to try to find where that big document is, almost all the links go there. If we scroll on down here into see full curriculum, right? This will bring us on into here. And these are the projects that we're building. You're going to constantly see me writing new ones. Not all of these are going to get implemented, but it's just, you can see I'm working with guest instructors in real time to try to figure out how to fit projects in here. But what we're going to be focusing on here today is the backend Lang portal. Ryan, how's your backend skills?
Mid. this is why it's going to be so valuable, because I'm going to show everybody anybody can do this. So here we go.
But I guess my question is, when you're paired with Cursor, then what is your skill level?
Oh man, I mean, you can, y'all, you're going to see you can basically do anything eventually, like with Cursor or Windsurf or Copilot. If you just have the patience to ask and work, you can build anything. It's super cool.
And as the comments say, you're building the course right before our eyes. This is back to our week one presentation that we're building the bridge as we cross it. Whether it will be stable, I do not know, but we will get to the other side. But yeah, so the goal for today is that, and we'll read it out here, but the language or the business goal, I'm going to make that font a little bit larger here. But as a language learning school wants to build a prototype of a learning portal, which will act as three things. It will have an inventory of possible vocabulary that can be learned, act as a record store, providing correct and wrong scores on practice vocabulary, a unified launch pad to launch different learning apps. Now, what's really interesting is Ryan has the background in EdTech. So, Ryan, can you tell me a little bit more about building learning management systems or things on that nature?
Well, basically when folks want to learn things, you have to go through a curriculum, you have to practice skills, you have to have tests on those skills. It's a good sort of typical app to build. So I'm excited to dig in.
And yeah, that's the exact initialization there is LMS. For those that have never heard of I don't know if I wrote it in here, but a learning record store. Oh, I call it as a record store, a learning record store. This is, we're always making up new terms here, but this means just to store your progress or history. So any kind of interaction a student's going to have in the app, it's going to store it back here. And this allows us to monitor what they're doing. But in this application, it's very simple. It's just, you got a word right or wrong. And let's keep reading through the restrictions here. So you've been tasked with creating a backend API application. It's going to use SQLite 3 as the database. You can use any language or framework that you want. It does not require authentication authorization, and you can leverage any AI coding assistant here to write your backend code. So I want to ask the audience, do you have your AI coding assistant ready, and which one are you going to use here today? So I'll give a moment for those folks to tell us what they are utilizing. And as they do, I'm going to go ahead and see if we have the application running here so I can kind of give a quick demo of what this thing is. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up. I think it's running on local port 5173. And so this is this application. I built this half by myself. And then I picked up Windsurf, and then Windsurf just surfed me all the way to the end. And so I was incredibly impressed by it. And so I would say that it didn't take me, it wasn't something that I coded faster, but I would say that it required way less mental energy. And so I was able to get to the end of the day and then sleep at the end of the day. I'm not sure how it is for some folks, but when you're racking your brain all day, it really messes up with my sleep. And so I'm getting sleep days back here with these GenAI tools. And we're seeing the comments here. We got Cursor, Copilot, GitHub. Some people are saying Amazon Developer Queue, Windsurf with Codium. So we got a good mix of people that are ready. If you're not ready, this is your opportunity to go grab one. But let's go take a look at the app. So this is something that we architecturally diagrammed last week. And so what it is we have this dashboard, and it shows us how we're doing. Then we have our study activity. This one's the typing tutor game, which I built by hand. Have you ever played typing tutor, Ryan? How'd you learn how to type back in the day?
I forgot about that. I did. Yeah, I used to use typing tutor, and like there was a game too as well. But yeah, good fun.
So people are always in the camp of Typing Tutor or Mavis Beacon, which are both really good. Sorry.
It was Mavis Beacon. That's the one.
Both really good programs. So I emulated that for Japanese language learning. But we have our words and we have our word groups, right? And then we have sessions. So this is kind of how the app works. It might help to just show a really quick session so people can get an idea of exactly how this would work in implementation. So there's just one more thing. And folks, don't worry about trying to get this to run right now because I'm just demonstrating this to you. But I'm going to go into a secret folder that nobody has. And I'm going to open up our typing tutor game. So we have an exact idea how this works. And so I think I go HTTP server here and we serve it. This is on port 8080, which is good. And so I'll go back over to here to our study activities. We're going to launch and we'll drop down. We can choose between verbs or adjectives. I think I know my verbs and we'll launch this up right now. You're not going to be able to hear it, but when these words fall and when I type them, they will actually say the word in Japanese. This word here looks to me like kaeru, which it's not. So maybe it's nemu. Nope. No, it's kaeru. Kaeru, which means to return. We have au, which means to meet. So I'm doing really good here. Ageru. But let's say I get one and let it fall all the way down. And it's really fun to wait 100 years for this to fall down. I like Ethan's kind of giving me all the answers here. Maybe that's why I'm getting them all right. But we'll wait for one to fall here because I just want to see one that gets wrong.
The suspense is killing me.
Yeah, it's a little bit too slow. But if we go back over to here, this actually created a session. And if we refresh it, it's storing, it's our learning record store, our history. And if we go back over to the dashboard, we got our stuff. And I love that it wrote raw SQL and I did not have to use any brain power to get what I wanted. All I had to do was review it and it was just super, super nice. And Ethan is, again, just nailing all the unten suru. So that is what the app is. Now, we already have the app built. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I wrote this, I really did want everyone to build it themselves from scratch. But after doing grading for the first week, I'm trying to make it a little bit easier for boot campers. And so I'm going to go all the way down here. And I'm just going to add a homework section here. We'll say homework challenge. And it's going to be re-implement. We'll say level 1, which would be re-implement the missing API endpoints. And then let's say level 5. I don't have any levels in between, but it'll be like, rebuild the entire thing from scratch, with whatever you want. So it's up to you what you want to do. You can take the this route or this route, but today we're going to be doing like a level 100 in the level 200 implementation here, if that makes sense. So how do you get set up here? So what I want folks to do is get set up with some kind of AI coding assistant. So I have a bunch installed, but let's say I don't have one installed. I want to go get Cursor, which is what Ryan is using here today. We can go to cursor.com. I'm going to download it for my target operating system. It's going to go through here and download it. Once it's downloaded, let's see if I even have it installed. Oh, I do not have it installed. So once that's downloaded, you launch it up. It looks just like VS Code. But the key difference is that it starts helping you out quite a bit. Now, for you, Ryan, are you using the paid version, free version?
No, I used the paid version for a long time, and everybody here can use that just fine. Eventually, you'll probably want to pay the $20 a month because you just get more AI completions. But everybody can do this for free today and follow along almost exactly. So. And I'm not funded by Cursor, just so anybody knows. I'm just a huge fan because it's so good.
And so, in terms of like why do you like Cursor in particular versus the other providers?
Well, I think the proof will be in the pudding. I'll show everybody. There's just a lot of things about it that are great and easy to do and fun. And I'll kind of walk you through the whole thing. And it's going to be messy. I'm going to be real about the way it works. I haven't practiced this. I literally looked at the code the first time this morning, y'all. So, I haven't practiced a perfectly, formed coding session here. It's going to be really real.
I'm not familiar with Continue, but if someone's comparing Cursor versus VS Code with Copilot, so VS Code is really, really working in Copilot. Like I just noticed as of recent, like I didn't install this; it was just up here now. So it seems like, at least for me, they really want it to be more tightly integrated to be a competitor with Cursor.
Yeah.
I have a course on GitHub Copilot, like a very complete course. At the time of right now, I would say that GitHub Copilot technically has all the same features, but technically having all the features and having a good developer experience is completely different. And whereas Cursor or Windsurf are really making sure that not only do they have the features, but they're really smooth and easy to use. But again, I'm not trying to not GitHub Copilot. They have a very generous free tier, so those that can utilize it, you can go ahead and do that. But you have to understand, what your spend is and what trade-offs you want to make here. So use whatever it is that you want to use to get yourself through it. But I'm over here on the Exam Pro website, the GitHub repo, Exam Pro Co. Free GenAI Bootcamp 2025. And I was saying to bootcampers that this repo here, you aren't supposed to fork it, you aren't supposed to clone it, but it does have some code in here, and we're going to manually copy it and paste it into our local repo. Okay. And this morning, I actually ripped out some API endpoints. And so if you have copied or gotten ahead of yourself, you're going to have to delete that folder because that one is no longer valid. And we're going to bring this code on down. So there's a few different ways that we can bring it on down. Probably the easiest way is to go here on the right-hand side and download it as a zip. And that's what I'm going to do here today. We don't need all of the code. I just really want the backend code. And so I have this folder here off screen. I'm going to open up the zip and I'm going to open that up again. So here it is, right? So I have the Lang portal. And so what I want to do is I want to find my local repo. I'm just going to do this in VS Code right now. But it depends on, you can store it wherever you want, of course. But where I like to store my stuff is a folder called sites. And so I'm going to stop these other ones here. I have, this is my local one, right? This is what everyone should have, right? So if you were trying to match up what I'm doing here, this is my personal one. Notice it doesn't even have Lang Portal in it, right? And so I need to get some of the code of Lang Portal in here right now. So what we're going to do is, this is this repo downloaded here, but I'm going to open up this folder. I think it's open period. Is that how we do it? Nope. But I can manually open it.
I think it's code period usually, but
well, that will open it up in a code editor, but I'm trying to get it to open up in a folder so I can drop it in. But on Mac, if you do open period, it works. But I think there's another trick we can do. You know what? You're probably right. Let's do code period. Because if I do code period, then I can, this is probably what you're thinking. You can just right click and go reveal in File Explorer. There we go. And so now I have this folder here. This is the local repo. And then I have this one here with Lang Portal. And I'm going to bring in just the backend. So I'm going to make a new folder here. Lang Portal. And then all I'm going to do is copy this one over. Right. And the reason I'm doing this way, like we did download the zip, but you don't want to bring in the .git, the .git ignore, other things that are in conflict with your current repo. And we can bring in the front end later. But for now, all I want is this backend Flask. And this one has some things that are a little bit implemented there. But what I'm going to do, just to help some folks out, is I'm going to just provide the link here in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this one here. And I'm going to go back to the chat here. And let's see if people can see it. So that's my repo. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong link. This link here. Okay. And so I'm just going to ask, how are people following along? Does anybody have this completed? Give me a +1 if you were able to download it, or a -1 if you are trying to keep up here.
While we wait, I've got a couple questions. So Seraphim Code says, anyone know how to use Cursor with WSL? I'll be showing that to you today. That's what Andrew is doing. It's pretty easy to actually get WSL spun up and installed if you're used to, Linux, Ubuntu. So, and also I just want to encourage people. You're probably feeling overwhelmed, right? This is the way learning coding always is, right? But the beauty is in Cursor or Windsurf, now you've got this little tutor on the right that you can always ask questions. And so I'll show you how to specially use that when you feel like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what's going on feeling.
So for those that are catching up, I'm just going to remind the steps again. You should be on the Exam Pro Co. Free GenAI Bootcamp 2025. You're going to download the zip. You're going to open up the zip. And then you're going to bring in just the backend Lang portal into here. Okay, folks? And again, if this is going too fast, it's okay, because this is recorded and you can have a second watch here to catch up. But anyway, so now I have this down here, and there are some things that I have removed out of this code base. And I'm going to pull up our Lucid chart so we can see exactly what it is that I've removed. So I'm going to pull this up here, and we'll give it a moment here. +2 running the app. Whoa, Climber. Some people are just really going ahead there. That's good. And so I believe it's our JP architectural diagramming. And I'm going to go over here. We'll give it a moment here. Or oh, sorry, it's already loaded. There we go. It's just wherever it's centered onto. Did not know. So next time I'll drag this over here so I don't have to look for it. But if we look at this chart here, the backend has a bunch of these APIs, right? Oh, I think I dragged a bit of it away. Let's go back over here. Oh, we lost some of our rendering. That's okay. But anyway, there's supposed to be here our actual backend application here. So I'll just fix that real quick. Right, and so this is our backend, right? And then over here we have our front end. I'm not sure what happened there. Folks, if you do have editor access, just be careful in the chart there. But for the most part, we are not granting people access. And if anybody feels like it, you can start a Congo line with cursors in the Lucid chart. But the idea is that we have this Python backend here. And if we take a look here, these are all the endpoints that are implemented here in the routes folder. And there are some very specific key ones that I have removed. The ones I have removed is the raw endpoint, the study sessions endpoint, and the study sessions review endpoint. So this endpoint here, the raw one, it is responsible for providing a payload to the language apps that we're using. So this is the language app, and it needs to know what vocabulary has to be used in this current session. So all this endpoint does is return a very specific JSON structure of raw JSON data. Okay, and that data looks like. Good question. What does it look like? So I think the way it looks, if we go into our routes here, the problem is the endpoint's deleted, so we can't see it. But I believe that the endpoint is supposed to be. Well, here's the thing: is that because if we bring in the front end, we could probably figure out what it wants. So maybe what we should do is bring in the current front end that I have, and then we can figure out exactly what API is expecting. Brian, do you think Cursor could do that?
Cursor can do almost anything, so probably let's ask it. I mean, there's one of these things. I always just go into the chat and start talking. See what happens.
Okay, so I'm going to make a suggestion here, and what we're going to do is actually bring in the front end, not because we're going to be working in it right now, but because we can then reference it in our portal. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this one as well. And so now this one is in here as well, because the front end knows what it expects, and so maybe we can make it work. But anyway, this is just a list of raw words. The other two endpoints, we have the study session. This will actually create a study session in the database so that it can track the current review words that are happening. And then we have this endpoint here, which is what the language learning app reports back to submit whether an answer got right or wrong. So it's a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. And so I think we have a little bit of the lay of the land there. One other thing I'd like to look at here is if we take a look at our diagram. Now, this diagram, I actually told, I don't know if I told Windsurf or I told some kind of GenAI thing, and it produced a mermaid file, which allowed me to visualize this. And so this will kind of give us an idea of what our structure is. And then Gloria's asking, where are the pre-break files in the new repo structure? Which is what Gloria is asking for. the pre-week or week 0, Gloria? Are we talking about this week or last week? But yeah, if we're looking for pre-week content, and if it's not clear, I'll make sure to, week 0. You'll have to specify exactly what you're looking for, but if it's not clear, what we can do on the Exam Pro platform in pre-week, we can make a material and make it very clear where those resources are. But anyway, so coming back to our database schema, the idea is that we have words, and the words table is there storing our word data. And so obviously I'm focusing on Japanese, and in this database, I have to store the kanji, the romaji, the English, and the parts of the sentences for this game to work. And then what we do is we take a bunch of words and we store them in word groups so that we can launch study activities based on those word groups. Okay, so actually this is a join table here. I can't drag it up. But the idea is that we have word groups, which is a join table between groups and words. Then from over here, we have our study activities. This is just a representation of what activity we're utilizing. So when we actually launch an activity, all it's doing is pointing to an existing app that is running on an endpoint. So that's what that URL is storing there. And then here we have our study sessions. So when we actually go and launch the app, it creates a study session. And that study session belongs to a study activity, the thing that we're doing. And it has a group ID that it's associated with it. And so that's how we're going to know what we're currently focused on. Then we have word review items. This is storing the individual, whether you got a word right or wrong. So it has a reference to the word, the study session, whether it was correct or wrong, and when that happened. So that gives kind of a bit of an overview there. Does anyone have any questions about the architecture? Ryan, how does this look?
I think it's awesome. And I think it's super cool that AI produced the mermaid chart. I actually use mermaid for flow charts in addition to database schemas. So
I think it was
again, I want everyone to just think about this. Like everybody, you now have a PhD level intelligence, like begging to help you. Like you have this person that has their hand up, like me. And you just, anytime you think this seems hard, I'm not sure, that's when you should start talking to AI.
Actually through this bootcamp was the first time I actually used a mermaid file. I didn't even know it existed, but I just asked. I was like, Claude, can you make me a flowchart? And it's like, here's a mermaid file and I'll render for you. And I was like, this is amazing. So it was just like passive learning, which I really, really enjoyed there. But now that, serious?
Yep.
But now that we have,
I didn't know about mermaid either. So yep, same experience.
But now that we have some of the structure understood, we're going to muddle our way through this. And so I'm going to take my screen off here. I'm going to bring up Ryan, as Ryan is as if what my dad would do is he would take you, if you want to learn to swim, he throws you right into the lake. But I'm going to pull up here Ryan's screen, and I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so I can see what's going on. And we are in what looks like VS Code, but we're in Cursor right now. Oh, Ryan, your mic.
I'm muted. I was talking. I was having a good time. No one could hear what I was saying. Okay. Yeah, we're ready to rock and roll. Here we are in Cursor. Should I take it away?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason why I asked you all in the chat if you had installed Cursor yet is because I think you're going to get the most value out of this session by using Cursor. Because I think more than anything, today is not going to be about getting a lot of code written. It's going to be about how to use the tool to multiply your output by 10 to 100x. So I'm going to show you around how I use the tool, how I'm going to use it to figure out what is happening in this code and what I'm supposed to do. And the more you all can interact in the comments, the better. Tell me if you have questions or if you're confused or if you have opinions. That would be great. Okay, so we had a couple friends in the audience ask about WSL. So I'm on a Windows machine, obviously here, and you can see down here on the left, I'm using Ubuntu. So I'm actually using WSL2, and the way I did that was actually I went up here and, actually, this is when let's do something. So I'm going to hit Control L, which brings up on the right, Chat Composer Bug Finder, right? So this is kind of where you're going to interact with AI. You can think of this as like the chat window, right? So here on the right now, chat is when you want to have a conversation with just one file or a couple files, and you don't really want the AI to change anything. Composer is really an AI. So an agent. So this is something that will start changing multiple files for you, and start doing things. And so let's first let's just ask a question. Actually, how do I use WSL? And I'm going to say VS Code. So Cursor is a fork of VS Code, and a fork just means they took VS Code and then they grabbed it and they modified it. So that's why Cursor looks so much like VS Code. So I'm just going to ask it. And this is a good example. All right, we've basically got instructions here for how to use WSL. I could follow through on this and start working on it if I wanted to. But again, as soon as you don't know how to do something, just ask the AI. The other thing to note here, actually, I'm going to go into the settings. Okay, so in Cursor, you have a couple settings. The way you do that is you click on the gear icon on the top right. Now, there's a couple things to note here. If you click in models, these are all the different models you can use, right? You've got Sonnet 3.5, which is the one that I tend to use the most. I believe Andrew uses this the most as well. There's a lot of choices here. I think it was Thursday, Google released Gemini 2.0 Flash. This is one of their best and cheapest models. I haven't tried this a whole lot, but I hear it's quite good. And then we've got various reasoning models down here as well that you can use. Some of the reasoning models don't work in Cursor yet. So that's how you choose the model. Let me ask in the comments. So why doesn't everyone who has used an AI for coding, which model is your favorite? Do you like Claude 3.5 Sonnet? Do you like 4.0? Do you like Gemini 2.0, 1.5? Throw it in the comments and we'll read out a couple of those favorite models. I'm currently using 3.5. Okay, so I always see Claude 3.5. When I look down, I'm looking at the comments. So
We have an IBM
IBM
Granite
Granite
in there. That's
3.2.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Calufe, Claude, a lot of Claude. 4.0, 01. All right, good. Got a lot of opinions. I love it. Haven't used it yet. Okay, today's gonna be your day. Okay, so let's keep going. There's a couple other things about Cursor I want to show you, which are super cool. This is kind of detailed. We're not going to worry too much about that. All right. I'm going to show you one other thing that's super helpful. Okay. Now, when you're using, Windsurf or VS Code with Copilot or using Cursor, you have to sort of imagine that you're working with a junior developer, right? Someone who doesn't know exactly what you want, and you got to be really specific. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is create a what's called a cursor rule. So let's go back into our settings, and under general, we're going to go down to project rules. So it says project specific rules that help the AI understand your code base and follow your project's conventions. They can be automatically included or fetched by an agent. These are synced with your code base. So, what we're doing is we're working with Flask, right? So we're going to add a rule, and I'm going to call it Flask. That can be lowercase. Okay. So what I've done now is we've got a rule. It says description. So what I want the AI to do is just make sure that it's using proper Flask code. So let's see, before I do that, I'm actually going to go let's open back up Composer. And I'm going to say, with my code base. So if I tag my entire code base, this is like one of these really cool things. I'm going to say, look at my entire code base. Tell me what core technologies are being used in this repo, because I don't really know, right? So it's going to look through the repo and it's going to tell me in a second what's being used. All right. So we've got on the back end, we've got a Flask API. We're using SQLite 3. Okay. Flask core is interesting. And we've got a front end, a React app, project structure. Okay. Now, given the fact that today Andrew has asked us to work on the back end, I'm going to focus on this and I'm going to say, okay, what are 3 important rules that a junior dev should follow when using SQLite? Was it SQLite 3? Is there 2 L's in that? SQLite 3?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, there's a 3 on the end, but I think 3 is the default these days for many years. Okay.
All right. So what I'm doing here is I want to create a basic rule for the AI to follow so that whenever it tries to write code that's going to interact with our database, that it does it correctly, right? Because you have to remember the AI can't read your mind. It doesn't know exactly what you want it to do. It doesn't know what your coding standards are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, create a file with those rules. I'll create a markdown file. Okay, cool. Oh, interesting. So this is a good little bug. Sometimes when it outputs markdown, it looks like gobbledygook. So this is a good little gotcha that happens sometimes.
So Ryan, right now with the rules, are like you're creating a rule and then you're testing whether the rule is doing what you want?
What I'm trying to do is I don't actually know what the good rules should be for SQLite 3 instance, right? I haven't really used it very much. I don't know a lot about it. So it's like, well, let's just have the AI write the rule that we want to create for SQLite 3. Now, this didn't really work right. So let's say create 3 simple rules for a junior dev to follow when using Flask.
So Marcus, what you're seeing right now is that Ryan is trying to generate out to create a rule and cursor. On the left-hand side, you'll see period cursor, which is a hidden folder with another folder within it called rules. And I believe what we're doing is we're prepping that flask.mdc file. So once we figure out a good rule, like a rule prompt document or whatever we call it here, we're going to bring it in here and see how it performs. Sorry, is that a correct description, Ryan?
That's exactly correct. So what I've done, Andrew called out. So over here you have a cursor folder, you have a rule subfolder, and then you have a flask.mdc file. Now this is just going to make our life a lot easier if we do this, right? So I'm going to switch. So Composer is an agent and it's trying to write code. I'm going to switch it back to chat, and let's see if this works a little better. So add 3 rules for a junior dev to follow whenever using Flask. And it should, here we go. This is part of doing this, y'all. I mean, this would have worked perfectly if I was showing you the perfect scenario, but this is most of what we all do every day is hack around and try to make things work. So what it's done is I'm going to go ahead and click copy. I could click apply, but I think it's
Mako, you're letting all the heat out. Sorry. I got for those that know, Baco's putting more wood in my wood stove, and I was like, put some wood in my wood stove so I don't get too cold. He's like, okay. And the door's wide open. I'm just like getting to 0, and I got my granny blanket coming out.
Andrew, he lives in a very
apologize. Yeah, sorry.
No problem. And I was like wildly sick this week, y'all. So if I cough, that's what's going on. Okay, so I'm gonna recap. What am I doing? Like, because this is a little bit down a rabbit hole, but this is important. So whenever you're using Cursor or a Tailwind, or sorry, Windsurf or a GitHub Copilot, you really have to tell the AI how to code. Otherwise, it's going to do some wild things. So what we're doing is we're creating one simple rule to show you how to create rules for the AI. And since we're using Flask, we're going to make a rule for Flask. So I opened up the chat window over here and I said, okay, what are 3 rules for a junior dev to follow? And it wrote this code for me, right? It's interesting. So I'm going to click apply, and it's interesting. I thought it should apply to app.py, which is not what we want. We want it to apply to this file, which it tried to do, and it didn't work. So we're just going to copy it, and we're going to paste it. Okay. So now that probably seemed like a lot of work, which it was, but let's go up here, description. Now the description, the agent will choose the rule to use based off of this description. So I'm going to say something like rules for Flask code. And I'm going to say, now, which files do I want this to use on? I don't know. So I'm going to ask, trying to think, well, where would those Flask rules be? Probably in this. Probably I want the AI to only use them when we're in our backend Flask folder, right? Because we have a front end React app. I don't want it to be using Flask rules then. So I could put this, right? I just want it to be used in the backend Flask directory. That probably makes the most sense. Okay, so I'm going to click save on this. I'm also going to do, just to show you how this works, I'm going to say, always say hi GenAI Bootcamp before you start.
Ryan, do you remember if Cursor had an extension, or is it, because I only know it as a downloadable, like its own forked IDE, right?
It did. It started off as I think as an extension, but I've never used it as that. So
for those,
okay, so
for those that are listening, the Windsurf is its own IDE as well, but originally it actually has a plugin called Codium. So that is a way, but I'm finding with these tools, the best way to utilize their full functionality is getting the forked VS Code. And like Ryan, you'd never go back to VS Code now, would you?
Never. Nope. I would not. So, all right, everybody. So what I've shown you is just a quick little side quest on Cursor rules and how they work. I was trying to see if I could get it to always do. All right, we'll say rule 0. Just kind of. Okay, I'm going to save that. Let's see if we can use it to get it to apply. Backend Flask star. Okay, so that's saved. So what I'm trying to do is show you, this is how you create a rule. And that should make the AI smarter. So let's give this a try. I'm going to pick any file here, migrate, and then let's ask it a quick question. How does this file work? Oh, all right. It's not picking up my rule for some reason. So I have to dig into that, figure out why. No big deal. But trust me, long term, these rules are important. I'm not sure why it's not listening to my rule number 0.
Ryan, if you could you just up the font a bit with the Control +1 or Alt +1 or I always forget which one it is. Oh yeah, it's good. So I guess my thoughts is like, can you write as many rules as you want, and then it will try to pick up its best use case?
Yes, exactly. So the idea is you create you could create a rule for Flask, you could create a rule for TypeScript, you could create a rule for Python, SQLite 3, because so you have to remember, just like a quick step back, like how does a large language model work? Well, you put a bunch of text in as context, and then it starts predicting tokens, right? And so these rules are being loaded into the context window for every single query. And so you want them to be as short as possible, and you want them to be as relevant as possible, right? You don't want stuff about, you don't want information in your context that shouldn't be there. So that is the purpose of a rule. But we're going down a rabbit hole, I think. So we're going to kind of pull out and continue, if that sounds good.
Folks are asking, like, how do I do this in Windsurf? The approach that Windsurf takes is completely different. Their idea is that it's just you just type stuff and it works. So it really depends on what you want your workflow to be. For me, I'm more of a just let's get it working. But I could see how Cursor, like if you are working on a really big project and you just want to have it to work a very particular way, I could see writing a bunch of rules being very useful. There's another product out there called Tab9, which these are all AI coding systems, but their approach is more like they'll reference a large knowledge base of your code and try to best, again, just work it, but you're referencing it. So 3 different tools, 3 different approaches. You have to figure out what works best for you. But if you're really good at writing your subtask and your sub prompt documents to route where you want, you could see how Cursor could be very powerful in that regards. And that's just one of its features that Ryan's showing us.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out if I want to show you anything else about Cursor before we sort of dig into the product requirement that we're trying to change. We obviously, I've shown you chat window, composer window. Let me go back to full screen real quick. Just like VS Code, you have your standard terminal window down here. Now, this is something really cool. So say you have a question about the terminal, right? So what you do is you hit Control K, and then you'll notice that you can start to ask questions down here. So I might say, like, how do I create a Venn? Maybe you forgot how to do that.
Sorry. So Ryan, people already want your rules file, and I just thought of a new a small side hustle is that you could sell. You could sell your.
You could.
You could sell those files.
You absolutely could. So as kind of a fun side quest, if I know some of you said you feel 11, you are a 2, you are feeling like you're crushing it. Why don't you spend a little bit of the time while we're doing this today, write a couple Cursor rule files and then share it with us. I would love to actually give them a try and then throw them in live. So if you do that, I bet Andrew will give you like extra bonus points or something, or maybe it will help you get into the red squad faster. So a little side quest. All right. So this Control K is something I use all the time. So let me just recap what happened here. So if you have any questions about the terminal, you just hit Control K and you ask anything. Like I said, how to create a Venv, or I even do something simpler like start DB. I don't know. Let's see what it's going to try some stuff. I mean, you'll never have to look up any terminal command ever again. And so I use that all the time. You can also, under Composer, you could also say things like, how do I create a Venv? And it's going to pump out some stuff. And then you can actually run this. So see, it says run. And so this would actually run this code if you wanted. You click run and it will run the terminal. So this is why you just have to code with AI now. It's so much faster, right? Where you just don't have to remember all this stuff. So, all right. I think we're ready to look in the product specs. Andrew, what do you think?
Sure. I just want to answer this one question here. So Ramsey is asking, is there a prompt structure we should be following, like CoStar or something? CoStar, for those that don't know, that's a type of structure that we talked about in the GenAI Essentials. There's so many ways of doing prompt documenting out here. But if you notice, Ryan was actually asking it, how should I make my prompt document? So often you can just ask it saying like, hey, what kind of structure? I think that's what you did earlier, but what kind of structure might look good as a prompt document? That's a tip that Duan had given me. He's a guest instructor, I think, next week for our main live stream there. But there are some really serious deep thinking about how to make prompt documents, and then there's just write whatever you want. If it works, it works, kind of thing. What's your approach, Ryan? Do you whatever works, or you do you do a lot of research and on that part?
No. So I use, so for the Mac, there's a tool called Repo Prompt. That's very good if you're on a Mac. Sorry, I have a hair in my mouth. Now, what it does, I can't show you because I'm not using my Mac right now, but now Okay, so let me show you a little thing that I think is quite helpful. So I'm going to go over to. All right, so I use ChatGPT a lot. Right now, what do I use this for? So I'm actually going to show you sometimes what I do before I go into Cursor. So let's go to. I'm going to make this larger. All right, so this is Andrew's specification, right? So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to take it over here. Now I've decided to pay for O1 Pro. It's $200 a month. Most people don't do that. So I'm not going to show you O1 Pro, but I think pretty soon, I think O3 Mini High or O3 Mini is going to be available for free. So let's go to O3 Mini High as a reasoning model, right? And here's when I'm pasting code, I do use XML. So I might say spec start. I'm going to paste it in. And obviously, Intel is saying, be careful, you're not sharing our secrets with everybody. And then I'm going to say spec end. Now, this is just a way to make sure that the AI understands better when this is like what things are. And then I'm going to say, can you please give me a step-by-step plan for a junior dev to follow to implement the following? So, Andrew, what should we be telling it to do here?
So I guess the first thing is that, well, we have multiple endpoints we need to implement. And one of the endpoints that we need to implement is the creating a new study session.
Okay. Creating a new study session. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's let this crank away.
You have to bump up the font. Like
that's tiny. Jeez. Okay.
There we go. So
All right.
here we have post study session. That looks good. Group ID and study activity. I was getting it right.
Yeah. Didn't think for very long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Reasons for 6 seconds. And then we have basically some like sort of a requirements doc: endpoint, request payload, database action, insert a new record. How does this look to you?
That looks good so far. Like at the top level, it looks like it talked about Ruby there for a second. We go up there. Did it talk about Sinatra? Oh, it's just saying like what you could use, right? So now it's being very generic in terms of its implementation. But the most important stuff at the top was that endpoint. So I know that I made some comments where we could implement it. So if we go back over to the a cursor, maybe I could provide a little bit of guidance of this stuff. But normally, like for these technical docs, I'm not sure how well I wrote in detail, but often before I even start coding anything, I will literally think about every single API endpoint I want, and I will write it out. And I remember doing this for, I know I did in the bootcamp. I'm just trying to remember if I did it in this project or another one. But anyway, that's okay. So let's go over to the routes directory.
Sure.
And we're actually, how about this? Can Cursor tell us if they can find the to-dos that I marked in the code base to see where we can start coding?
I assume so. Well, let's see. So.
And so Composer is one, it's an actual agent. So will it actually try to make changes, or is it more just a conversation?
I have a trick. I'll show you. So
okay.
Are there any to-dos in the routes? Actually, I'll just not include the whole code base. Okay, so I'll say, are there any to-dos in the routes, right? It's called routes. Yep, there it is. Files, don't change any code. That's the key. Let's see.
And so would you say that the agent is more intelligent than chat, so that's why you like to go on the agent side for explanation? Or because it leads you into your activities of what you might change? Sorry.
Yeah, same exact intelligence. It's just that sometimes I want to start doing things, and that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I want you to walk away from here. Like, if you're going to use AI, you have to think of it as a junior dev. Like, you cannot just say, "Hey, add this endpoint," because it's gonna start changing code. It's gonna do the best it can. What you always want to do first is say, make a plan, and then you save that plan as a markdown file, and then you tell the AI to look at that markdown file and start executing step by step. So we're actually going to do this, right? So yes, I found 3 to-dos in the routes files, one in groups, one in study sessions. Great. Well, let's check this out.
One other question I have is, you have Composer and Chat. If you were to switch over to Chat, would it carry that same conversation, or are those things completely isolate?
They share memory somehow. Let's actually check. Um, let's try it. So if I say,
Okay.
how
So
would I?
for those that are watching, if you're using Windsurf, if you go between Cascade, Cascade is the way that you use it. But if it's right in Chat, you can switch at any time, and it'll continue on for where it is. All you're doing when you're using Windsurf is saying whether it's going to manipulate the document or you're just going to chat with it, which was really interesting. But sometimes you might want to have conversations in isolate. So again, it's pros and cons depending on what you like as your workflow.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's usually I will use Composer most of the time. But when I want to have a very specific, isolated conversation about a piece of code, I use Chat. It's almost like if I want fine-grained control over what the AI does, I use Chat. If I want to more step back and really manage the AI as a junior developer, and let it code and then stop it and start it and give it feedback, I use Composer. um, so there's that.
In terms of all the endpoints we could probably implement, I think that it probably would be able to figure out study sessions post, because we have the database. Like the other
Cool.
ones, like the words raw, we need to know what we want as our output to the front end app, which
Yep.
this thing might not know of, because unless we have it in our documentation or we have the front end app code, it's not going to know.
Yep. So
But
should I delete all this code? Because
no, because that's a get one, right? So the one that we're focusing on is study sessions post to create one.
cool.
So
Got it.
for the study sessions post, I have a feeling that because we have the schema, which is written in our SQL files, and we have, I think it should be able to figure that out. So maybe
Yeah,
what
let's
we can
try it.
try to figure out is, can we ask it to implement the second endpoint, and see what it can come up with.
Let's do it. So first of all, though, there's obviously a couple linter errors, right? It's like, uh-oh, why is this underlined? And usually what I do is just say, okay, fix it in Composer. So let's just see.
Wait, we can fix those? I
Yeah.
always see them in Python. I just go, I don't know what to do about those, and I just have to like turn my brain off on those squigglies.
No, this is like this. And what's insane is in Composer, it actually auto fixes linter errors as it's editing. It's just so cool. All right. So you probably saw that I moused over this and said fix in Composer. It says for the code present, we get this error. Import Flask cannot resolve. How can I resolve this? You need to install Flask, obviously. But maybe that's not obvious, right? So now this is going to be interesting. So I'm actually going to click run. And it's going to say, oh, you can't do that, Ryan. And now this is something that's specific to this machine. I'm on my Intel machine, and it's like, whoa, you can't just install stuff here. So I do know how to fix this. I could say, I'm going to Control K. Like, how do I get around this error? I know how to get around it. I'll show you in a second. But oh, that's pretty cool. It's saying, let's do a venv. Let's try it. So I'm going to hit Control Enter. Yes, I do want to do this. AI is so cool. Look at that. So I actually knew the right answer was I had to create a venv, but it knew it. It just blows my mind. Okay. So what it did there, it figured out, it piped together a bunch of commands. All right. It created the venv, then it activated it, and then it did pip install, which is exactly what I knew it needed to do. So Sorry, sometimes just AI delights me. Okay, and now, well, what do you know? Our lint errors are gone. Okay, let's get back to work. All right, so now we need to do this. Now, there's a couple ways we can do this. So you have to think about what level of intelligence do you need to create a plan to tackle this, right? And so if you have a highly complex uh, feature that you're trying to implement, you probably want to use a reasoning model to create the plan. Um, if it's pretty straightforward, like this might be straightforward enough that we don't need a reasoning model like a Claude 3.5, then we may not. So let's try this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into chat, create a new chat, and I'm going to ask it to create a plan. Can you please create a plan for a junior dev to follow to implement the study sessions post route. Let's see, create a markdown file for the plan, add check boxes for each step, keep steps atomic and simple, add testing code if you can. Okay. Let's see what happens, y'all. Oh, see, this is frustrating. And this doesn't happen on this doesn't really happen for me much on when I'm doing this on my Mac. So I don't know if this is a specific problem with the Windows version of Cursor, but you can see this is Markdown, but it's getting sort of gobbledygooked.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you get some of the Markdown, but not all of it. So we're gonna have to figure out a different way around this. Here's what I'm gonna do. Let's I'm gonna go back over to
Treat your junior devs good.
yeah. All right, so let's go. Okay, so let's go back to ChatGPT. Let's use O3 Mini High. And what I'm going to do is copy and paste this code. And I'm going to cheat a little bit by just using 3 backticks. That's kind of the same as using XML to start. And then I'm going to go to the bottom of the file. Did that copy correctly? It did. Yep. All right. And then I'm going to put 3 backticks at the end. Okay. So I basically copied in this file. And then I'm going to go back over here, grab my prompts. All right, I'm going to do a quick check-in with the comments. If you're tracking with me, you don't feel super lost, give me a 1. If you're like, what the hell's happening, give me a 0. Just want to do a vibe check. See how everybody's doing.
Ones are coming in.
Ones.
A 0.5. Hey, there we go.
Okay. I got a couple zeros, hang in there if you're on the 0 side. The biggest thing, if you're feeling 0, get Cursor and just start talking to chat. Start talking to Composer and just try to get to that 0.5. Super lost, but great content. Sorry, Rick, we're trying.
And folks, just remember that no matter what we do here, I'll be shooting videos afterwards that are more prescriptive and straight to the point. What we're trying to do is extract Ryan's knowledge on his workflows so that we can discover new stuff like the rules, which I never even knew about. But sorry, yep.
Okay, so let's go back. So we have our plan. I thought about it for 5 seconds. And here's our Markdown plan. Plan for implementing the API study post route. This plan outlines step-by-step instructions for creating a new study session via post. So this is what you might tell a junior developer to do. So what we're going to do is go back to Cursor. I'm going to create a new folder here called plans. and I'm going to create a new file called, we'll call this study sessions. .md. I'm going to paste it in. Okay. By following these steps. Okay. All right. So this is how we're going to actually get the code written. Now, I could have just jumped straight in and said, do it, right? But what you'll find if you code with AI is that that will tend to be frustrating because you'll probably go down a lot of loops. You'll probably end up changing code that doesn't quite right. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, whereas this is just going to be a better way forward. So let's start fresh here. All right, we're going to open up our study session, our study sessions MD file. And I'm going to go over to Composer, create a new Composer. And this is where we're actually going to start implementing some code. All right, so I'm going to say the file that we want to edit is, actually I'm going to say, please start implementing this. Only do step 1. Work on this file. It is study sessions.py. Okay, so we've got our plan. It's interesting, it didn't create numbers on them, but I'll say only do the first step. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so let's go back over to our file. All right, we got real code. Let me get rid of our. All right, so it's deleted our comment. It's added in /API study -sessions post cross origin create study session. It's going to get JSON. Let me wrap the code for us. Oh, I'm sorry. I just hit Control Z.
So I think Cedric was saying, like, so in essence, you jump back and forth between Cursor and ChatGPT for revising your code. I mean, I think it's just use whatever you want kind of thing. Like, I think as you're working through the flow, you'll find that sometimes you get, I found this when I used to use GitHub Copilot, but I didn't like its output. I would just go directly to Claude for some things, or I'd go to V0 for some things. And I'm not sure, like, Ryan, do you think too hard, like not too hard, but like hard, how hard do you think about when to deviate from Cursor to other tools, or you just it's just naturally you just flow to other things?
I mean, so you saw the reason why I ended up going over to ChatGPT is because I was getting weird markdown output from Cursor. So normally I do most everything in Cursor. Occasionally, if I want a really detailed plan, I'll actually use O1 Pro and have it create a really detailed implementation plan. Then I'll copy that into a markdown file like I just showed you, a plan markdown file, and then I'll have Composer execute that plan. So that's most of the time what I do. I think what you all need to realize is that this is like the messy process of working with an AI. You just always have this super helpful PhD student all the time to help you. You just have to learn how to work with it. So let's look at the code it wrote. So if not data or group ID, not in data, study activity ID, not in data. Okay, let's accept it. Now we need to continue. So we've got a ton of steps. I'm going to say, check off the step and continue and continue. So, yep, it's going to check off. Checked off that step, and now it's going to continue to extract JSON payload. So let's see what's doing over here. Sorry, y'all. Okay. So I'm like looking over this now, it looks sort of correct to me. I honestly, I don't really know. That looks reasonable.
Well, let me take a look here. So first of all, the return looks good. It's giving the group and study activity ID, So that looks correct. If we go up a little bit more to the start of the function, and the reason is because I'm just so familiar with what it did before. But anyway, so we have our study sessions post. That's good. It's getting the JSON. That's fine. Validate required field. So if not data group ID, then throw an error, because if it doesn't have a group ID, it wouldn't be able to do it. So that's some good error handling. That's good. The cursor part, that looks normal. That's how you interact with SQLite 3. Again, not an expert in Python, but because I got this working, I just remember what I'm looking at. Writing raw SQL, that's what I would like it to do. App DB commit, that looks fine. Get the last session ID. I don't think there would be an issue there. So yeah, that at least at a glance, it looks perfect to me. But
Cool.
I think that's the issue, is that just because it looks good, there's another layer to testing that.
Yeah. Which I'm also realizing, I'm not sure if it has been. I'm not sure how aware of it is of the schema, right? So I'm curious because in our,
I guess my question is, on the right-hand side, when you're talking to it, does it tell you its reasoning? Like, do you have like little boxes you can open on the right-hand side, being like, oh, I looked at this, I looked at that. Does it say that in there?
Nope.
Okay. For those that are watching, again, different tools, different things, but in Windsurf, I think it provides reasoning, like, oh, I'm looking at this file, and so I looked at the schema, and therefore I did this and that. It's just, again, a comparison of different tools. Sorry.
Yeah. It was interesting. It is interesting that so cursor is an SQLite function, because it's funny that's called cursor.
I don't know. I don't think it's SQLite. Well, it is a function by that library, but I don't know if it's a generic library or not. Like, if we go to our all the way to the top there, we could also just ask as well. But if we go all the way to the top there, it is coming in from, it's actually from the apps. It's app.db.cursor. Oh, interesting. Okay, so app is part of Flask. So when we installed our requirements, it's just SQLite 3, right? There's no like Flask-SQLite 3.
Oh.
Can we check our requirements.txt? I'm just really curious.
Sure.
If there's like an intermediate library. No, so I guess it's just built into Python. Here's a question: can we ask Cursor Cursor's agent what's going on here?
Let's do it.
Sure. Sorry.
So, what is cursor? How does it work with the DB? Let me explain. I love that. A cursor is like a pointer connection versus cursor. The app.db is your database connection. It maintains the actual connection. A cursor is created from this connection to execute queries and fetch results. Okay.
So cursor is a very specific. Yeah, cursor is a very specific term when we're talking about SQL, to like move where you are within the terms of your connection. So it's something that appears at a lower level, but I'm just surprised that that it's showing it there. So again, the question is, like, is this someone saying, like, maybe it's there's a database builder, or what's the word? It's not an ORM, but a query builder. So anyway, I'm not sure, but there's clearly some kind of adapter there in Flask. But again, not an expert in Flask. And I don't think Ryan's an expert in Flask either. So, but
no,
it works.
I mean, it's like I used to write Python a long time ago. Loved Flask. It's been a while. This is the great thing, is like you can quickly get spun back up on stuff. Oh, I see Josh is here. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Django. Oh, Ethan's saying Django RM. Interesting. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. So what are we doing? Quick refresh, right? So Andrew tasked us with creating this create study session route, and so I went out to I went over to ChatGPT and said, create me specific step-by-step tasks for a junior dev to follow. I took that markdown, I copied it into a study sessions.md file just so we could remember it, and then I'm asking Composer to walk through that and do it step by step. So we just finished step 2. I'm going to accept all those changes, and then I'm going to say, please.
That's a really interesting approach, because by generating a high-level reasoning, you can even see exactly its reasoning before you even run it. Whereas when I use Windsurf, I'm giving it more vague instructions, and then I'm watching to see what decisions it made. But again, it's similar, but one's more front loaded and one's more one's more proactive, one's more reactive. And I think that's kind of interesting that to that coding approach or prompting approach,
Yeah,
I
I
suppose.
just interesting.
It's
Whoa,
checkboxing
whoa.
them off. That's really cool too.
It is, but it just started doing something I didn't want it to do. So I said, please check off the completed step. And it looked like it was going to check off a bunch of them. And this is a common snafu where it just starts moving faster than it should have. So I stopped it. And this is the other beauty. So this is hard to see, but see how it says restore. So I'm going to say, go back. Whatever you did, undo it. And now whatever changes it made to the code, it's now back at this step. And I'm going to say, please check off the one completed step and can continue to the next step, which I believe is validate input data. We'll see. Now, what I normally do over here when I create the plan, as I say, number each step. I'm actually going to do that now because, so please number each step like 1.1, 1.2, 2.1, etc. Now, I think a lot of this developer experience is going to get ironed out. Like I think probably in 6 months, Cursor, Windsurf, all of them will create these plans automatically, have them numbered. You won't have to kind of handhold these tools as much, but for right now, you have to do this. Okay, so we're going to copy this. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to update my MD file, and I'm going to check off that first step.
There actually was a GenAI tool specifically that was intended to generate out plans. I can't remember what it's called, but I was being a bit uncooperative on Twitter. I was just saying, I don't know. I feel like humans can write the plans up, but they did have a tool which what it would do is it would break up all the tasks, and so you would review it before you would feed it into it. But I was just finding that we had way too many tools end to end. And I wanted some humans to be left in there. So,
yeah, the human in the loop is still nice. Okay, so it checked off that step. Oh, it's interesting. We've already implemented step 1.3 validation as well, but let me check if we want to make it more robust. Currently, we have. Let's go see what it's doing over here. Oh, it's making it more robust, Andrew. How do you feel about this?
I mean, we see more code. That's not necessarily a good thing, but we have this is one thing. Well, this is one thing. It's like when you ask to change one thing, it might add more stuff you didn't ask for. But here it says add type validation, validate the group, and it's fine. It is getting a bit messy. This is as a developer, I would just start to say like, hey, start refactoring this and don't make these things so big. But maybe that's where you could be writing a rule. Again, I'm not suggesting us to sidebar here, but your cursor rules. You could say when writing API endpoints, try to abstract the code into common modules like validation and stuff like that. Or if it's using validation, I'm not sure if Pydantic is used for that because it's a data validation library, but maybe it's like when validating stuff, use Pydantic or or whatever the validation library is for Python.
Genius. Yeah, there is this a tendency for it to want to please and do too much. So you'll notice I said, I just kind of laughed because it's kind of delightful. So we don't need that extra validation, but thanks anyway, smiley face. And I said, oh, you're right. Let's keep it simple and stick to the plan. So it removed that extra sort of, I agree with Andrew. It felt like this is getting a bit bloaty and it deleted it. So it said, let me check off step 1.3. And in the plan, since we've completed the basic validation, great. Would you like me to continue with implementation? Next section, database insertion. Well, let's see. Let's accept the file. Yeah, we want to do 2.1. So say yes. Please proceed with 2.1. All right. Let's see what happens, y'all. Oh, look at that. Interesting. So it says, looking at our code, we've already implemented all of section 2. Is that true? We've got create a timestamp, new study session, commit the transaction, retrieve the new created. Did it do all that? Let's have a look. Insert, yeah, commit, return. Yeah, okay. It did more than we thought, y'all. All right, so we're going to accept all those changes. I'm going to save it. Okay, so I think, everybody watching this, you're probably thinking, wow, I mean, it kind of feels like the AI is doing all the coding and we're just kind of watching. Yeah, sort of. I mean, this is the reality now of coding quickly with AI, that a lot of this is going to feel more almost like project managey. And I think that's okay. Now, the problem is you do need to understand the code at some level, right? Otherwise, you just literally have no idea what's happening. But I find that this is the way I code a lot now. And it's a lot of fun. So, all right. How are the questions doing, Andrew? Anything that we could answer or chit chat about?
Sure, yeah. Do you notice any performance issues of using Cursor with WSL versus Cursor natively on Windows? What is your reasoning for using WSL?
So notice no performance hits at all. And I use WSL just because I've always, used Linux, Ubuntu. So it's just more comfortable to me. I think the dev tooling is also better. So that's why I like to do it. All right.
And
So
sorry, for boot campers here, I want you to use WSL if you can in Windows, because it's very, very hard to support the native Windows flow, and it does throw a lot of weird errors. So like people are like, I can't get the project working, and I say, did you use WSL? And they're like, everything works. So if you can, try to use it. But if you want to go super hard mode, just understand you're going to be on your own. But if you get through it, document it, because that'd be pretty cool. Sorry.
yeah, and I think that the more comfortable you get with Linux, the more you're going to find the entire development process easier, right? Whether you're on a Mac or a PC or wherever you're at, you're going to be using Linux. So, all right. So just to recap what we're doing here, Composer said, "Do you want us to continue?" And I said, "Yes. Let's do 3.1, which is the step return a success response." So let's go over here and see what code it wrote. I think it already did this. Our current implementation matches this exactly. Yes. So we're going to say, yep, keep going. Yes. Tackle 3.2. All right. So in the audience, let's check in with everybody. Ogenie says, could you do a tutorial on the bug finder? I haven't used the bug finder yet. Andrew, you're not a current Cursor user, right? So you have not used bug finder.
I'll open it and then 10 minutes later I'll close it. But I got dumb fingers, so anything that has extra steps to it, I need it to be as dumb as possible for me. But I didn't even know it had a bug finder. What is that? Does it try to find your bugs for you? Like okay.
It's experimental. And it just combs your entire code base and tries to look for bugs.
What if you hit new run? Do it. Let's try it.
Oh.
Or is this going to be the next 30 minutes? And it's going to be 30 minutes of regret right now?
Well, who knows? Let's do it live. Bug finder analyzes code changes between your current branch and the main branch. Yeah. Sure. Should we do it?
Yeah.
It's going to cost me $2.88.
American, right?
Well, yeah. Is that a good thing for you?
That's like a big family meal right there in Canadian dollars.
Okay. Wow. So we're gonna let that thing. Okay, folks. Whew, sorry, still coughing. Okay. Wow, it's cranking. What it do? All right. Look in your code. We've already implemented the exception handling as well. Look at this. Did we handle the exception handling? Yeah, I think we did. Yep. We got a 400 up there. Okay. Would you like to move on to section 4? Yes. Let's do. 4.1. Now, I don't know how this feels to everybody. If it feels a bit sort of piecemeal, if it's completely different the way you coded before. But I find that this kind of collaboration of creating a plan, following it step by step, checking each step, and kind of controlling the AI to not do too much, really unlocks a lot of productivity, and it's great. $3 super sticker, Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler just covered the cost
What's
of that
that?
book finder for us.
Oh, Tyler, you're amazing. I feel like I want to help you back. Okay, so let's see. Well, let's check in with our bug finder. Ooh, 5 potential issues found.
That's it. I did pretty good then.
Andrew.
That's
Okay.
good for me.
With our new create study session function, no longer validates the existence of group ID. Database integrity errors. Previously, the code to verify the provided IDs existed in the groups. Because this is checking the code that you've already written in the the previous version of the repo.
Well, whatever exists there. Yeah, some of it. Yeah. Study sessions review endpoint has been removed and replaced. It's noticing that I removed the code. Right. It's
Okay.
actually going through the history of it. I didn't know it did commits. That's interesting.
Wow. Okay.
It definitely is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually hitting all the ones that we removed, eh? Endpoint has been removed
cool.
and replaced with a to-do comment. Okay.
Huh. That's kind of fun. I feel like that was worth $2.88.
Yeah, I guess, is it a bug? But it's not necessarily a bug, but it is a change, right? But if you did change it, that could cause a bug, right? To see those missing, especially if it just says to do.
Yeah.
So the reasoning kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. All right. That's the first time I ever used Bug Finder. So thanks everybody, and thank you, Tyler, for making that possible. That was great. Okay, we're gonna head back over to our session and see how our friendly junior developer is doing. All right.
Ryan, do you have any history in radio?
People always say that about me. No. Andrew, should we start a late night DJ show?
Sure. Yeah. We just got to figure out if anyone can think of a name there, but people just need to give us a playlist and we'll give them.
I love it. Very good. Okay, so a couple things. Is it me? Is it just me, or I try to serve every time I change anything? I'm not sure. I follow that comment. A meal would be better spent in the bug finder. Come on, I don't know. All right, interesting. Badger Dean says, I actually like the approach and makes a lot of sense as it gives you more time to focus. Like it. All right. Well, let's keep going. It has completed, I believe, 4.1.
Josh, what's your go-to 80s hair band?
Oh, interesting. All right. So it's created a test file. So we've got a new test directory over here on the left with a test study session PY file. Cool. Okay. To test this file, create a test client for our Flask app. It creates a test client for our Flask app, sets up a clean test environment, test the post endpoint. Do you think we should run that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So, all right, I'm going to say, how do I run the test? I feel dumb asking, but here we go. To run the test, you can use Python's unit test command. Make sure you're in the backend Flask directory and run. Okay, well, let's, I think I'm not there. CD lang portal, CD backend Flask. Okay. Or if you want more, let's try this. I think this is going to run over here. Failed. Ooh. Let's see. Well, Let's add a composer and ask, help me fix this. Let's see what happens. See if I was in the Venv. Yeah, I was in the Venv. Deep Sound. Is that the name of our new DJ show? Okay. So it found, it says, we need to set up the application context for our tests. So it's gone in and it's, let me make this smaller. All right, so it's made some updates to our testing file. So we're going to accept that. And we're going to try it again. All right, I think we got some more errors. Unit test create session. Let's try to, all right, we're going to add the composer, say, still not working. Please help. All right, people are talking about Downton Abbey now in the comments. Oh, that's you.
Oh, are you? It's a favorite for you, Ryan? Downton Abbey.
Oh, I love Downton Abbey. But what was the question? This favorite show?
Oh no, they were coming up with names. I think Josh suggested Browntown Abbey. But I don't know. I think my favorite name for a late night GenAI show so far is Deep Sound. I think that's pretty good.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so interesting. It's noticing, oh, well, the test database doesn't have the tables created yet, which makes sense. Like I never did that. We didn't set up the database. So it's struggling actually doing anything with it. So it is modifying the setup to include that, which is cool. So we'll say accept all, and then we're going to try to run it again. Okay. Look at that. Our test passed. So far things are working. Again, that's just a good example of like kind of iterating through. Like, I don't know why this isn't working. Okay. Oh, the database isn't set up. Duh. Okay. Well, let's do that. And now we're done and we pass the test. So let's carry on with the steps. Could you show how you added the command line as context for the composer? I think, yes. So what I did is this. I went on, so on this error, if you mouse over it, see how it says add a composer? That is how you do it. So you basically find any error down here and then you pause. I actually had to click and then I clicked add to composer and then it does that. I use that all the time. Let's keep cranking. We're getting closer, y'all. I'll say, where are we in our plan? Only got about 20 minutes left, y'all. All right, things we've completed, we're doing pretty well. Currently, we're working on 4.2 manual testing. Still to do final review. I think we're basically, please check off the completed sections. All right, so it's updating that. Seraphim says, while it's kind of slow, are we just going to work on Lang Portal for the homework? Do we need to do like all 3 level 200 projects for Red Squad law? That's a question for you, Andrew.
Sure. So, folks, I actually do have a bunch of videos from guest instructors for front-end code, test code, all sorts of things. And I need to just get them into the portal. While all of my guest instructors ship their code and we recorded them early, we have just a few defects we need to solve. After this video, I might show, I haven't decided yet, but I might go and do the level 500 one because folks are asking, how would I actually do this from scratch with a different framework? I can knock that out very quickly for folks. So understand that lots of content is coming right after this live stream. Okay.
Boom. Okay. Everybody, I just for a quick recap, I asked the AI to tell us where we're at in the plan and to check off the steps it had completed. We are all the way, you'll see, testing the new endpoint. We did that. And we're about to do manual testing with curl. And it said, do you want me to continue? And I said, yep, let's do it. It's probably going to show us the commands to use. Nice. Yeah, right here. So let's actually try this. This should be fun. So we can actually run this command right here. So it's saying, here's the curl command. Curious if this is going to work. No such table. Study sessions. Let's make that. Well, let's pop this. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Class curl. Couldn't connect to the server. Wonder why. Whoa. Terminal, where'd it go? Did I just make my terminal really big? What happened? No. Hello. Everything's getting really big now. Okay. Just a second. Good. The API stat. Check. What is, I'm just going to put a new terminal here. Not sure what happened there. All right, let's try this again. I'm probably going to have to go to the backend folder. Where are we? LS. Let's go Lang portal. Okay. Let's try to run that command again. Run. Now we can add that to Composer. Please help. Obviously makes sense. We are not running the Flask application, so we probably should be doing that. This one is like obvious things.
One thing I noticed that Rolla had pointed out about LLMs is that unlike other AI or ML models, which will give you a confidence score, LLMs do not provide that because they can do a bunch of stuff. And so evaluating how well something does is hard to do. I haven't seen any AI-powered assistant that gives you a confidence score or talking about how accurate it thinks that its result is. I don't think Cursor has that. Ryan, have you ever seen a confidence score or any kind of scoring? Yeah.
That would be really nice, though, if there was. So now that we've got our Flask server up and running, now we should be able to kill that. Let's open up a new one. And then I'm going to CD to my LS. Oh, yeah, CD Lang. Okay, now we should be able to run this. Look at that. Haha. So cool. Okay, so what happened here? So we wanted to test, is the endpoint working, right? And we went through a couple iterations. We have a test file that we can run. Great. Now, can we use a curl command? Well, it turned out, well, number one, the database wasn't created correctly or configured correctly. We fixed that. Then we realized, okay, well, the Flask server is not running. Okay, fix that. And then we ran the command, and sure enough, we got back some JSON. Created at group ID 1, ID 1, study activity ID 2. Andrew, what do you make of that?
Let me see here. I mean, that looks exactly what we wanted to do. Yep, that looks correct. Yep, okay. That's exactly what we want.
So my CTO, hopefully you have approved of our rather circuitous route that we are almost complete for the task.
I'm a fractional CTO, so I'm just happy if the client's happy, and I'm gone by the time this goes into production.
I love it. Sorry, my my throat's beginning to go. So Andrew, what should we tackle next? We've only got about 15 minutes left.
Well, I mean, we got one of the hardest endpoints implemented, and we had an opportunity to see exactly what the flow is. If you want, and you want to rest your voice, I can do a bit of driving here, and we could maybe take a step back and look at how we look at the documentation side of stuff, like building a doc. Does that sound fun?
Let's do it. That sounds great.
Cool.
I will
All
pass it
right, I'm
back to
gonna.
you.
Oh, sure, sounds good. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and get my screen up here, and I actually have Windsurf open here. What I want to do is get the same project that is open, and so I'm going to go over to my folder here, and I believe that I have copied it over. So mine's in my Omen King free GenAI Bootcamp, folks. I'm going to go really quick here, but I'm just getting you just watch and just kind of absorb the process that I'm going through here while we're documenting. So in here, we have the Lang portal. I have the back and the front end. So I brought in the front end in case I need to reference code to the back end. But what's really important for us to figure out is like, how do you write what it is that you want? And if you want to have a good output, having a strong technical spec is really, really useful. So I just want to show, before we jump into that, I want to show another project that I was working on, and I believe it's over here. And this is one that I might not publish, but I had to build this other app called Progressive Learner. And the idea behind this app is that I want to be able to start with a single word, and I want to keep progressively adding words to this thing so that I start with a very simple one word and then end up with a complex sentence in my target language. And so I said, okay, I got to build this app. So I'm going to tell it what my technical stack is. And then I'm going to define each of my API endpoints, right? And so I wrote all this stuff by hand. And then after I figured out what my API endpoints are, I thought about what my schema was. I wrote out what my schema was. And based on this information, you are creating your core information in order to work with it. So if we go back over to here, and into our backend Flask, right? Probably what I should have done when I did this project is I should have made a file in here called technical specs. And let's see if we can try to generate out this stuff as well. Like imagine we're building this from scratch. So something that we might do here, again, is to first think about the API endpoints. What is it that we want to do? So we have our business use case, right? And I believe, yeah, business requirements. This will help us type it as we go. But I want to build a language learning, not a language learning app, but a language learning portal that will store the vocab of a language in a database, right? And then sometimes I might structure this and say, okay, maybe we should just make a list. So if you're having a hard time structuring your data as a sentence, another way is to bullet points. So what do we want this thing to do? We want it to have an inventory of words in the target language. We want to have a group of words to thematically to create thematic categories. There we go. We want to store study sessions. Kind of like that. So, e.g., words right and wrong. Okay, and so we're starting to kind of define what it is. So, we are building a language portal that acts as a launch pad for study activities, but also lets us browse our vocabulary library. So we've kind of defined that now. And so the next step would we would define our endpoints. I'm going to say API endpoints. And again, you can see it's doing a lot of the work for it. But the question is, as I'm typing this, is it referencing this doc here or not? But imagine that you are a developer coming in and you're like, cool, some other developer built this thing. I don't know how it works. I don't know if I trust the code, but I want to write it in whatever language that I want to run. Who doesn't come in and say, this is great and all, but I would like to change this over to Next.js, or I would like to change this over to Rails. Every developer tries to do this. But anyway, even this, I think it's referencing the code over here. So I would think about what endpoints I want. So, okay, I know that I want to have this thing. I'm trying to visualize what it is that I want this thing to do. So I know that I want to get some words from a words API. I might want to describe what a word looks like. So that's a good one. I might want to update a word. I actually don't want to update a word, so I'm going to take that one out. Maybe I want to focus on groups. So I'm going to go here and we'll say get API and we'll say groups. So I might want to see a list of groups, right? Then we might want to look at an individual group. then, so we have this. So we have our words and our group solved. Those are two things. We know we want to have study activities. So we know we'll have to create a study activity. So I'm going to say post API study sessions. Well, sorry, a study session could be something that we are using to perform. And then there's a study activity, which is something separate. But we know that we need to create one. So a post will create one. And so you can see I'm starting to define my API endpoints. Once I have my API endpoints, I have to think about like, okay, what exactly is this endpoint supposed to do? Like visually think about what we want the data to become back as returned. So something that we might think about is like, okay, I have this, and I'm actually just going to take this to another level. Say this is 2 and this is 3. And now I'm going to describe what this endpoint is. Well, I know that I want to return a list of words, but how many words do I want to see? We'll say 100 words at a time. And I'd say, it should have pagination, right? You might even say like, what kind of data you want to see in here. So maybe I might say, I want to say like, I want to show the schema. So let's take a look at response JSON, and maybe it'll suggest it for us. So I'm going here,
Andrew,
and then we have one here, right? Sorry, yes?
Just so you know, everyone loves your blanket.
Oh, yeah? Uh, but Ken Collins, who is another guest instructor later this week, he actually has his own. And I don't know, but I think his grandma might have knitted it. But
that's
I know. Oh, sorry, yes?
That's amazing.
This one probably came from my grandparents' house, but I'm not sure if they knitted. They probably just bought it. But you can see here, as we're developing, we're really defining exactly what we want. So there's multiple approaches that we do. But the point is, once we have this reference, what I will do is I'll just go back and say, go references doc. That's what I do. I just keep saying, go references doc, go references doc. And I keep looking at the code until I like it. But if you have those two components, your API endpoints and your SQL, that's another way for you to drive it. But the point is that you have to figure out what works for you. This works for me because I built so many MVP applications for so many startups that it's become a routine for me. But you saw Ryan's approach was completely different. And I would have never thought about doing it that way, which was really, really interesting. So, I don't want to be too prescriptive in terms of how to do this, but I just want to point out that Ryan had a way, I had a way, and you might come up with a really interesting way. And I would love to see how you approach that. So I will, in a follow-up video, rebuild this from scratch, maybe in another target framework language. But I want to stress it. You don't have to do it the way that I do it. If it doesn't work for you, figure out what works for you and do that. Okay. And so hopefully that is good. But does anybody have any questions or says?
Well, and on that front, it's interesting because watching you, Andrew, and thinking about the way you're presenting, it's kind of interesting because you're a developer. To type out a list of get and posts, right? Like these are the things I want to accomplish. And you've already translated a lot of what needs to be done into pseudocode or code itself. And I just want to encourage everybody that's going through this, if you start to feel like you're confused or you're just thinking, I wouldn't even know to say that, like that should be a get versus a post, or to even what to put in that list. That's where you need to start leaning on AI to help you do that. Because there's a lot of code that I write now where I end up learning, oh, okay, so this is the way the machine thinks about it. And then I start thinking about it that way, but I didn't know to do that at the beginning. So we just live in this new magical world where you have this tutor that literally is there all day, every day. That's a PhD level student that wants to help you figure this stuff out. So
for boot campers, you probably remember in pre-week when we were just, I think a boot camper has wiped away half my architectural diagram, but we had before here a conceptual, a logical, and a physical diagram. And when we had Chris Williams, the thing that he said is like, Andrew, that's great that you made this like low-level architectural diagram, but I would have started on this side of the spectrum, right? I would have been on the other side conceptual. And so you have to think about the way that you want to translate those over, and there's different approaches to take to it. But again, I can only think the way that I think because I'm so developer focused. And everything is a hammer to, like, I got a hammer right here, but everything is a hammer to me. So that's the approach I'm going to take. Again, I just don't want to be overly prescriptive. I know we only have 5 more minutes, so I just want to say a few things that people need to know what we're doing post this event. Right after this, we have after-class Q&A in the Discord. That is a 30-minute conversation, similar to this, but you can actually come on stage and ask questions. For those that are wondering about Discord, Discord is currently closed. We are at capacity for our Discord. I'm not sure if we will find a different way for people to get in, but if you got in, you're in. If you're not, you can still continue on the bootcamp, showing up to these live streams and be on the Exam Pro platform. But there are certain interactions that you will miss out on, but we will do our best to relay that stuff. I know some boot campers never joined the Discord, and we've had some that never joined the Discord and made Red Squad. So, just do the best you can with what you have, and that will be good. A series of videos will be following later today. We have an interview with a fireside chat with Simone about GovTech and GenAI, which is really interesting. We prototype an app out with Brian using Next.js, and I actually got to learn about Replit, as a lot of people seem to like that piece of hardware. We have a video from Christy and Matt, who completely rebuild the front end using, I actually don't know what they use, but I think they used Bolt.new and a mix of Lovable. I got to watch the full video there. But all those videos are coming out here. So just look for the stuff on this weekend. And we have 4 minutes left there. So I'm just taking a look here at some other questions. How do we submit the homework? To submit homework is an Exam Pro platform. At the end of every week, the last material is the submission material. So please look out for that. I know that I'm going to make a revision for the submission form. And we're bringing back consideration. So for those that have to submit late for whatever reason, or they're having disruptions in their life, we'll put that considerations box there so that you can describe that stuff, so that you're less stressed about the fact if you are late or you're missing things. Again, we want to see as many people get through this as much as possible and provide you the tools, and we'll make the tweaks as possible. We did recently add a hack and tell channels to the Discord. So, I encourage you to not just do your work in your repos, but share them in the Discord, in those channels. And if you do have something that is very creative and interesting, please make posts on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on wherever. Tag me or show me so I can see it, because we want to see your work, and I want to see who we can get into Red Squad. What is late? Where are due dates? We actually have 2 due dates for the final submission, and then we have the final submission, because we know we know that people are going to be late and they're going to ask me what is. I go, yes. And then you know what? There's even a secret due date that you can submit after the final due date. So folks, we have built in as much
final.
secret final. And if you submit within the next 5 years, you can make Red Squad.
Hey, by the way, Tristram says, back to your blanket. My mom is threatening to crochet you a hat.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm looking for it. Well, I need one because it's a little bit cold in here, but we'll talk about that behind the scenes in the after class Q&A. Sorry, you want one?
I want a hat, but Tristan, you don't have to make it. Don't worry. So,
all right.
And funny. I appreciate everybody being here.
And boot campers, just watch out for Ryan and I's new late night GenAI podcast called Deep Sound. We'll let you go there. So thanks everyone for showing up, and we'll see you again right in the after class Q&A Discord. Ciao.
Bye.
In the lungs of my pop stars, hints from those shades I in. Sand wax the last of my wars. These farm through cars flying. Then spams of hymns and on our parts. Bees one that ever alien friends from distant songs. Share joy as a luck we grow. Amid the hum of machines, the glance reveals two souls connecting in the cosmic wheels. A tree forged over flavorless intertwines. The universe butterflies like the fires. Together we sway, stars in our eyes across galaxies. is why the halting skies left the echo in the empty hours. Eclipse but sheds in a million losing right across the universe of sky. Will your sandwich could suffice to break the barriers now the ice? Once tossed our eyes, as often by a smile, cause we gently exchange for just a little while. Under flickering lights in this humble place, our mighty probes transcend the time and the space. In its lunge of not while we're still alive, our mouths like evil streets still side by side. From beyond the stars we both come to fall in peace within the hum and the hum. Eclipsed by shadow moons and right, I trust to you the dazzled sky. For you it's some which could suffice to break the barriers, melt the ice.